There we go. Welcome to the Walterfootball.com Fantasy Football Show. This is our Week 15 edition, joined once again by Michael Hofer. Michael, how are you this week?
Great, Walter. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hope I don't know how you did in your fantasy leagues in Week 14, but hopefully you
7
survived.
of 8 have made it to Week 15 championship.
Very nice. I had some injury misfortune. I had Patrick Mahomes in one of my big money leagues, and I lost by a few points, and Mahomes just threw checkdowns in the second half because then he got injured. But I did advance to the semifinal of the league where I started Eli Manning, as we discussed last week.
Yeah, Eli!
Yeah. Also joined this week, Nick Palavita, the president of IBMtv. Nick, how are you this week?
I'm doing fine, and I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan.
Very nice. Right. My condolences to how they performed against the Rams.
Yeah, no kidding. You saw the game.
Yeah. Well, at least they're 10-3, and they're still in position to have a playoff spot. So at least that's something. But yeah, Michael, did you have anything you wanted to discuss to open this?
Yeah,
show?
Two things actually. One, I got a team that has a great chance to win, but my 3 running backs, I have to decide who to sit between Raheem Mostert, Miles Sanders, and Devontae Freeman. And that's a tough choice, dude. I mean, it's a really tough choice for me. So I'd love your input on that. And I guess the noteworthy news this week was Le'Veon was sick, lost 9 pounds. Team told him you're contagious. Don't come around. Then he went bowling Saturday night till the wee hours of the morning, and they're making this a big deal in the media. So I was curious as to your opinion on that as well.
I really don't care about the Le'Veon Bell stuff because they said they're going to trade him anyway, and it's kind of like he's mailing it in now. And if you're working for a company and they say they're going to lay you off, I know it's not like technically a layoff, but if they say they're going to lay you off in a couple weeks, you're probably not going to try very hard, and you're not going to show up to work all the time. So I don't mind Le'Veon Bell doing that at all. I mean, Adam Gase himself said that he didn't want Le'Veon Bell on the team to begin the year, which was very confusing. And Bell hasn't had 70 rushing yards in any game this year. The Jets are running it at a 36% clip. That's the lowest in the NFL. So you have to kind of question what they're doing with Adam Gase. I saw someone tweet, I can't remember who it was, but they said the Jets are trying to get rid of Le'Veon Bell and Jamal Adams, and yet they're keeping Adam Gase. It's like, maybe they should try another strategy.
Yeah.
As for your running back question, is it PPR? I guess I have to ask that first.
Yeah, of course.
It is PPR. So I think Freeman would have to be in there, especially with Calvin Ridley out. That means he's going to have more of a target share. So then it's down to Mostert versus Miles Sanders. And I guess I would lead towards Sanders because the 49ers have so many running backs. I know Boston Scott just had a big game Monday night, but Miles Sanders left the game with an injury for about a quarter. So that's why Boston Scott was on the field so much. I have a feeling that they're going to go back to Miles Sanders. Now, if Jordan Howard comes back this week, I might go to Mostert. But if Howard is out, I think I would go with Sanders and then Freeman as well.
Yeah, it's funny because there was a guy I read online that said that Freeman may not get much play because the Falcons are going to be behind and going to be throwing the ball. And that was you. And then the Mostert thing, we're back to Shanahanigans. It runs in the family. Kyle is exactly like his dad. You cannot trust the running back situation there. So it's like, I don't want to blow my title. I know whichever guy I pick, if I pick the wrong guy, it's going to cost me a title. So you're saying... I forgot what you're saying. Sit Mostert.
Yeah, I think I would go with Sanders and Freeman in PPR unless Howard plays, and then I would go Mostert and Freeman. I wouldn't be afraid of Freeman falling behind. I expect the Falcons to be behind in this game, but I don't think that affects Freeman very much because he's such a big part of the passing game. So, in a PPR format, and that's kind of why I asked. I don't think Freeman's going to get many rushing yards, but he might get 6 catches or so, and that'll help you a lot in PPR. So I expect big numbers from the Falcons this week, just because, first of all, they're going to be behind, so they're going to have to throw a lot, and second, it sounds like Richard Sherman and K'Wan Williams, 2 of their top 3 corners, are going to be out. So that could open up some opportunities for the Falcons in the passing game.
Yeah, since last year, I thought Mostert was the best back in that backfield. I thought he had the most bursts. He's really been showing it the last couple of weeks. So I haven't had to worry that much about Shanahanigans until now, where my guy is really actually becoming the main guy. And now I don't feel like I could trust it at all. So thank you for that.
It's very difficult. It's I guess kind of frustrating, like the Chiefs running back situation is.
Oh my God, yeah. Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, and Shanahan, those guys, they'll drive you nuts.
Yeah, at least with Bill Belichick, you can count on James White getting his 13 PPR points per game. He's always going to be a steady option in the passing game. He seldom gets in the single digits. But yeah, with Andy Reid, we thought that it was going to be McCoy, and I played a lot of McCoy on Yahoo's fantasy daily because McCoy was only so the bare minimum price on Yahoo is $10. McCoy was only $11, and I thought that was a huge steal. I played McCoy in about 75 to 80% of my lineups, and that was a huge bust, unfortunately. So it's so hard to count on these guys, and
Wow.
and 49ers as well. They could easily go to Matt Breida. They could easily go to Tevin Coleman. Maybe Jeff Wilson Jr. shows up and both his touchdowns. It seems to be the case that like it's different running back every week, and I think there is a method to their madness. I mean, they just look at matchups, and I think they know which running back is going to be able to exploit the matchup the best. Unfortunately, we don't know that, so it's very difficult to predict. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to start one 49er running back this week, I think it has to be Mostert. So I think another big storyline this week is that there's so many quarterbacks who are injured. I'm not talking about like Daniel Jones, who's going to be out, or Cam Newton, who's been out for a while. I'm talking about quarterbacks who will play this week, and yet they're injured. And I'm kind of curious if you would play these guys. So I thought like we could kind of like play a mini game where I'm going to name a quarterback who's injured, but will be in the lineup, and you could tell me if you would play them or not, because I think it's
Daniel Jones is practicing. He's practicing with the second team right now.
Yeah, I would assume it's Eli Manning. They said he'll be out. He's week to week, so I would assume it's Eli Manning. But you know, the first guy is Lamar Jackson. So he's
I picked up RG3 just in case, because I thought in a short week the smart thing would be to go to RG3, but no, the guy's saying he's going to start, so that is a curious situation.
Yeah, he said he's going to play. He's listed as questionable, so it's not definitive. And if he didn't play, it wouldn't be the first time that a player said he would play and didn't. That's happened a lot in the past. Players tend to be overconfident with their injuries, and you can't really blame them. That's it's what they do for a living. They try to stay in the best shape possible, and they think they're superheroes. And sometimes the coach will say you shouldn't play, and they're right. I would assume Lamar Jackson is going to play. So if he's considered active, would you use Jackson in year long and also daily fantasy?
Against the Jets, absolutely. Plus, he's trying to win the MVP, which is why I think maybe he wants to play.
Yeah, I would play him as well. I downgraded him in my initial rankings. I had him at 33 fantasy points before the injury was revealed, and I downgraded him to 28. I don't think he's going to run as much, and I don't think he's the clear-cut number one quarterback. I still have him number one, but I think you can make the case for a few other guys. But I would definitely play Jackson. And if you're doing a showdown on DraftKings, Jackson's been the winning captain in the past several Ravens games. So I would want to put Jackson as the captain. The problem is he's going to be very expensive. So the next
Devontae. I was just looking at the news feed. Devontae Freeman is sidelined for Wednesday. Maybe that's maintenance because you said Wednesdays don't matter.
Wednesday, I said last week or recently. I would not paying attention to Wednesday injury reports unless it's the Thursday game, obviously. A lot of veterans just take off, and it's very misleading. So I would start looking at Thursday.
Yeah, interesting comment from Pat Shermer. Demands on a running back with an ankle are different than the demands on a quarterback with an ankle, but I still think it's important to remember that part of Daniel's game is his ability to move around. So I guess that sounds like it's going to be Eli.
I would assume it's Eli. Eli played well in the first half last week, and it's an easy matchup against Miami. The Dolphins have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Most quarterbacks who've gone against them have had great games. Ryan Fitzpatrick last week, Carson Wentz the week before. So Eli Manning is someone I'm probably going to start again in this league I'm in. Which
he looked great in the first half, and then the second half he was back to old Eli.
Yeah, I think, the Eagles' pass rush, while the Eagles are terrible in the secondary, their pass rush is still very good. So I think that's the difference between the Eagles and the Dolphins, whereas the Dolphins can't put any pressure on the quarterback, and they can't cover. So it's just a very easy matchup for Eli. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to start him again. It's the semifinal of a big money league I've been in since 2003, and I've won I've won twice in like the past 5 years, I think. So I would love to get a third championship. I love my roster. The problem is that my quarterbacks are shot because I drafted Cam Newton and Drew Brees. Both got hurt. I had to drop Brees to open up a roster spot, and then someone scooped them up. So I've been cycling through quarterbacks every week, and somehow I'm in the semifinals. But I love my roster. Otherwise, it's really good.
You kept Cam and you dropped Drew?
No. I dropped Cam and I started Drew like week 2, and then I had to drop him as well because he got injured and I needed a roster spot. And so I've been cycling through a different quarterback every week. And so I might I started Trubisky 2 weeks in a row. It's been Eli, so it's kind of like going on a whim with these quarterbacks. So hopefully Eli gets
Fitzpatrick looks good this week too.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick's definitely an option for sure. This matchup's a good one against the Giants, who have a terrible.
Did you have a choice of getting him instead of Eli?
I didn't look at the quarterbacks because I had to pick up so many other spots because my tight end's Jared Cook, so I had to pick up another tight end. It's like I'm kind of like the walking wood in this league. I don't know how I'm in the semifinals, but
I had the same choice, and I went with Fitzpatrick over Eli. I had the same situation.
Yeah. I have Fitzpatrick ranked ahead of Eli. We'll get to the rankings a little bit later, right. But I do have Fitzpatrick ranked ahead. The rushing yards helps. I would love to have either Devontae Parker or Albert Wilson in the lineup, though.
Oh, you got it. You got it. He's wearing a non-contact jersey. He's practicing. Parker.
Yeah, I saw that, but he has to get cleared. That doesn't mean he's cleared yet. I would love to see him cleared from concussion protocol. If either he or Wilson plays, then I think I would go Fitzpatrick, unless one of the people in my league is listening to me and scoops him up, which would not be ideal. All right, okay. Let's get to the next quarterback who's injured. Dak Prescott for the Cowboys. He had an awful Thursday game, and there was no really explanation for it because I know Chicago's pass defense is very good. But there's no reason Dak Prescott should have been that inaccurate as he was in the first 3 quarters of the game. Caught a little fire in the fourth quarter, but the Bears were playing prevent. They just didn't try to stop him. And then it was revealed that he injured both of his hands in last week's game. So I think this one's a little tougher than Jackson. I would definitely play Jackson. But what do you think about Prescott, especially against this Rams defense?
I had the same situation. I had Prescott and I had Darnold, and I thought, I am not risking my title on either one of those guys. So amazingly, Jimmy G was on the waiver wire. I don't know how that happened. So I grabbed Garoppolo, but no, I couldn't go with Prescott. I just couldn't make myself do it. So I would say no on Prescott.
I agree. Even if he were healthy against that secondary, which is just amazing, they just shut down Knicks, Seahawks. Jalen Ramsey Jalen Ramsey is a great addition to that defense. I mean, he'll shut down Amari Cooper for the most part, I think. And then Dak Prescott's going to have to throw to Michael Gallup and Randall Cobb and Jason Witten. And he's not 100%, so I don't think you can count on him. I would try to find a different option this week if I had Prescott as my starting quarterback.
Amen.
Yeah, the next guy, Jameis Winston, he hurt his thumb against the Colts last week, and he also lost Mike Evans, which was very disappointing because I had Jameis Winston was my highest exposed quarterback on DraftKings, and I had him paired with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and I was so happy when he threw that touchdown on Mike Evans, and then Evans got hurt, and it's like, oh man, it's over. My dreams of winning the $1 million is over for this week. But Jameis Winston hurt his thumb and is not 100%, and he won't have Evans, who's ruled out for the year. So would you start Winston this week?
I am in more than one league. and the coach is a pass-happy coach. You got Bradshaw, Perryman, and then the other new guy. I forgot his name already. They got adequate replacements. They're not Mike Evans replacements, but you got Godwin. I don't think it changes that much. And Jameis played pretty well with the injury last week. I still would roll with him.
Okay. My concern though is that Winston usually gets his yardage when he's behind. It's kind of like Matt Ryan. Remember when Matt Ryan was throwing for 300 yards every week in the beginning of the year, and it's because he was way behind. Sure. And Jameis Winston just had his 450-yard passing game, but he was way behind as well. The Colts had a double-digit lead twice actually throughout the game, so Winston had to throw a lot. But I think this game against Detroit, I would imagine that Tampa's going to be ahead for most of the game. So I have to wonder if the Buccaneers are just going to rely on their running game to kind of run out the clock. And of course, we don't know which running back they're going to use. That's another frustrating one. But if they're ahead, I don't think they're going to pass as much as they usually would, because Detroit's one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. So with his thumb, Evans's injury, and the fact that Tampa might be ahead for most of the game, I think I would stay away from Winston this week. I'm not going to play him very much.
You're scaring the hell out of me. You might be right. Those are very good points, man.
Yeah. Well, then again, Detroit could get out to a big lead as well. So and then my analysis would be thrown out the window.
Yeah.
I mean, Detroit's starting David Blau, I assume, once again, and Blau. As for Blau, I wouldn't be afraid to play him this week. I would try to find a better option. I'm talking about DraftKings, obviously. You should have a better option in your long leagues. But in DraftKings, he's going to be very cheap, and you compare him with Kenny Golladay. I don't think it's the worst play in the world. I don't think it's that great either. But I think Blau is the least viable this week. And, I think you need to consider all options, because last year Brock Osweiler won someone $1 million in DraftKings. Yeah, I think you have to look at that. The last one is Baker Mayfield. He injured his hand 2 weeks ago when he hit it on Bud Dupree's helmet, and he looked very pedestrian last week. He missed passes. He's lucky he wasn't intercepted a few times. He had to rely on Jarvis Landry's big yards after the catch play in the fourth quarter to get a good yardage mark. And he's playing Arizona, so it's a great matchup for Mayfield. The problem is that he's not healthy, and I guess neither is Odell Beckham, who has been playing with the sports hernia. So I think under normal circumstances, I would consider Mayfield. But would you play him this week with his injured hand?
I own Baker in a lot of leagues, and I really my heart's been with the guy, but I finally have to get off that train. It just looks like the wheels are falling off. Beckham's been a distraction. While he's claiming he loves to be with his LSU brother, he wants out of there, and everything is falling apart there. The coach is going to be gone. Baker's had a rough season. I just can't roll with him this week.
Yeah,
even against Arizona.
I agree. I wouldn't play him either. And yeah, Beckham wants to get traded. I imagine he will be traded, and I'm going to write an article soon about where I think Beckham will land.
That's good. That'll be a great article.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if he went from New York to Cleveland to Green Bay? How would that guy survive in the tiny town of Green Bay, Wisconsin, where his value of his brand just plummets?
Yeah, it would be pretty bad. But if he wins the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers, all of a sudden he will get all the endorsement deals he wants. I'm gonna write an article like that for Le'Veon Bell as well. But you mentioned Green Bay as a possibility. Is there anywhere else? Because I'm thinking of one specific team that could use him. I'm wondering.
He wants to go to San Francisco or LA.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. The problem is the Rams are set at receiver, and the Chargers are. I think they're fine at receiver. I don't think they'd need him. San Francisco, assuming they keep Emmanuel Sanders and they have Deebo Samuel.
Deebo's a man.
Yeah, I love Deebo, and so the Niners don't need a receiver either. So even though he wants to go there, I just don't see any of those teams trading for him. The one team I'm thinking about is New England. So the Patriots, they went after Antonio Brown earlier in the year.
Oh, yeah.
They knew he was a problem, and they had to cut him because of the sexual assault allegations. And and whatnot. The Patriots are not afraid to take a chance on these guys, and
Right.
considering how bad the receiving core is, like
I love it. I love that idea.
Yeah, Jacoby Myers drops passes every week. N'Keal Harry hasn't progressed as I think they would imagined, and all they have is Julian Edelman, my fourth cousin, by the way, and James White out of the backfield. Tom Brady has no one to throw to, and Brady looks bad right now. And Brady's another one I was going to bring up next. He just doesn't have anyone to throw to, so I think they're, with 1 week, I don't know how many years Brady has left, maybe 1 or 2. Maybe 3, but I think they'd be willing to take a chance on Odell to try to win another Super Bowl. And they went after Brown, they went after Randy Moss early in their career. They're not afraid to take chances, so I think they would do that. Brady is the last of the injured quarterbacks, so he's been banged up. I think it's his elbow. I don't know what it is. I mean, he's 42. It could be a lot of things really at this point for a player at his age. So would you play Brady this week against Cincinnati? It seems like a good matchup, but I don't know. What do you think about this one?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of enthusiasm about it, but I guess I'd have to give it a mild endorsement.
Yeah, I think I would stay away from Tom Brady this week. I just think there are better options. He's injured.
Yeah, definitely better options. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? They're playing a horrible Cincinnati team. I think they can run on, and I think there's a very low chance that Cincinnati's going to be leading this game. I really can't see it. So that means Tom Brady's not going to have to throw a lot. Now he could easily rely on the running game. They get down to the 10-yard line and then he throws a couple touchdowns, and then suddenly he has a good fantasy performance because he has 3 touchdowns on the afternoon. That could certainly happen, but I think more likely than not, I see him like a 220-yard, 1 touchdown, no interception, solid game where the Patriots win by 14 or so, or 17. And they just don't need him to throw. They just rely on Sony Michel to run a lot, or maybe James White. I mean, those are the injured quarterbacks I had my eye on this week. There are a lot of options this week. It's a 13-game slate on DraftKings on the main slate, so 26 quarterbacks to choose from. So it's difficult. I wouldn't play these injured quarterbacks. I think we agreed that Lamar Jackson's the play, but he plays Thursday night, so he's not an option on the main slate. So Prescott, we had a no on, both of us. Winston, we were mixed, but I think probably leaning toward no. Mayfield, no, and then Tom Brady, probably not. So I think
you got Phillip Rivers at number 6.
Yeah, so we could jump into the fantasy rankings, and we've been discussing quarterbacks, so I think it's a good segue. So let's get to the quarterback rankings. Number 1, Lamar Jackson. I said I had him at 33 fantasy points before the injury was announced. Now he's at 28. Still number 1, but he's tied with Deshaun Watson at number 2. So this will depend on the injury report. Tennessee was down 2 of their top 3 cornerbacks last week. So Derek Carr had a decent game. Deshaun Watson, obviously way more talented than Derek Carr, and he has better receivers. Will Fuller's probably coming back this week. Deshaun Watson seems like a great option against Tennessee. And as a bonus, I think Houston should be behind in this game. I see Tennessee getting out to a big lead, and Watson may have to throw a lot. And Watson could end up as the number 1 quarterback this week. As for that reason, luckily on DraftKings, you don't have to decide between the two because Jackson's on the Thursday slate and Deshaun Watson's on the main slate for Sunday. So you can play both. Number 3, Drew Brees. Drew Brees, again, you don't have to decide between the top 2 guys in Brees either because Brees plays Monday night against the Colts. Indianapolis has some major injuries in the defensive backfield. They were down two of their starting cornerbacks last week, and Kenny Moore was a big loss for them last week. He's such a good player. If he's out, Drew Brees should be able to carve up that secondary, and I have faith in Brees otherwise anyway. Number 4, Jimmy Garoppolo against the Falcons. Atlanta's not going to have their number 1 cornerback Desmond Trufant, and they were already poor against the pass. So Garoppolo just has a dream matchup against Atlanta. The only concern I have with Garoppolo is maybe the Niners rushed for a few touchdowns, they're way up, and then Garoppolo doesn't need to throw. But I think with Richard Sherman out and K'Wan Williams injured, I think there's a chance that this might be a shootout and might be closer. So that means Garoppolo will have to throw. So yeah. Number 5. Oh, this is another injured quarterback I missed. Patrick Mahomes. I talked about him to open our show today because he cost me a trip to the semifinals because he was injured. He just threw checkdowns for the most part, just short crossing routes. Would you play Patrick Mahomes this week against Denver?
Yes.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah, he's so good. Yeah, he's so good. The problem on DraftKings is that I believe he's the most expensive quarterback on the slate. So it's not an ideal matchup. So I'd probably look elsewhere. Like I'd rather play Garoppolo. I'd rather play Deshaun Watson.
Indeed.
Yeah, and Philip Rivers is my next quarterback, I'd rather play him as well because he's a lot cheaper. So Philip Rivers, number 6 against Minnesota.
I've given up on him. I hate to be the one to tell you that. I love Philip Rivers, but the father time is undefeated.
Well, I played a lot of Philip Rivers last week, and he did very well for me. He had a great game against the Jaguars, who were just kind of mailed it in.
Yep.
And I don't know if you saw the trash talking that Philip Rivers had, where he was yelling at someone. Did you see that?
Yeah, he's one of the best trash talkers in the league. He has been.
Yeah, I love how the guy was like, stay humble. And Rivers like, that's what I do. I love Philip Rivers. I hope he plays forever. Father time is catching up to him, unfortunately, but this Minnesota secondary is so bad that I think Philip Rivers could have a big game. This is probably going to be one of my favorite games to stack, the Charger Viking game. So on DraftKings, I'll play Philip Rivers, pair him with Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler, and then run it back with Dalvin Cook. I think that's a very good game stack. I
you should cash in on that one then. That's a good contrary pick. You got to get the overlay. That's an overlay, all right.
Yeah, I think so. I like Rivers this week. So he's number 6. Russell Wilson, number 7 against Carolina. Russell Wilson had a terrible game against the Rams. I think he bounces back. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And when a great quarterback has a terrible game, they usually bounce back with a good game. So even though Carolina is better against the pass than the run, Carolina is better against the pass than the run, but it's not a great pass defense or anything. So I think Wilson's a safe option. Number 8, Kyler Murray, my sleeper pick this week against the Browns. So it's pretty easy to figure out the Cardinals and Kyler Murray. I think if they're playing a defense that can get after the quarterback extremely well, they're really going to struggle. Murray's just really bad against these great pass rushes. If Kyler Murray is playing a team that can't rush the passer, he's done very well this season. And Cleveland no longer has Myles Garrett rushing the passer. So Kyler Murray, I think, is going to have a big game. I think Arizona wins this outright. And I like him. I like him quite a bit this week. Number 9, Ryan Fitzpatrick. We talked about him recently. Giants defense is so bad. Their secondary is horrible. And then number 10, Carson Wentz. He's playing another bad secondary this week. I might drop him a little bit, and I think I'm going to move Matt Ryan ahead of him. But I think Wentz is in a good spot. The problem is that he's got
nobody to throw it to.
Exactly. He has so many injuries. I love his tight ends, and Miles Sanders looks great as an option out of the backfield, but they have no receivers. And Nelson Aguilar could come back, but I don't know if that's going to be enough to keep him in the top 10. So let's just say for the sake of this the show that I moved Matt Ryan up to 10. So what do you think about my top 10?
Okay. Rivers, I'm sketchy on him. Kyler, I'm sketchy on, and Carson and Ryan, I'm sketchy on. But I do love Fitzpatrick. Definitely love Fitzpatrick. I gotta like Jimmy G this week, even though I don't think the guy's the greatest quarterback in the world. And when it comes to Breeze and Deshaun, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Along with the guy we can't see right now, who's number 1, our MVP.
Lamar Jackson.
Lamar, right.
Yeah, before we move on,
I like Ryan Tannehill too. He's been on fire.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you about Ryan Tannehill. They play Houston secondary is terrible. I'm thinking about moving Tannehill in the top 10. Would you do like that? Yeah.
Tannehill could carry you to a title this year. It's amazing. I thought the guy was a horrible quarterback, but he's got a new life in Tennessee. unbelievable difference. The guys turned into a winner. I'm shocked, but you got to give him credit.
Yeah, amazing that he can improve once he gets away from Adam Gase. Seems
Yeah.
like
Yep. Yeah.
it seems like Sam Darnold gets worse with Adam Gase, Ryan Tannehill improves without Adam Gase, and yet they're willing to trade their two of their better players
Yeah.
just to keep Adam Gase. It's like what are the Jets doing? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Let's get to the running backs.
Well, you haven't mentioned Aaron.
Oh, Aaron Rodgers, yeah. Yeah, he's so he's got to be higher than this.
And Goff went off last week. That ain't happening again, right?
Jared Goff, I think he has a middling performance this week. I think he's okay. Dallas is not the greatest matchup, but it's not the worst either. They're pretty mediocre. I think
they're only going to win if they run it with Gurley.
I mean, the problem with Dallas is that their safeties are bad, and I think that Sean McVay could scheme open some players for Goff. I think Goff could have a solid game, not a great game. Aaron Rodgers against Chicago, I think he's what, 15 here. He just I expected more from him against Washington. He just was a disappointment.
But Aaron Jones went off and they didn't need to throw the ball, so that's why it makes last week like what the heck happened? Maybe there was just they decided to run the ball and they didn't need Aaron. So yeah, that's a concern for me as well. What is going on with that guy? What happened last week?
Yeah, he missed. He had Jimmy Graham for a long touchdown. He missed him. He just wasn't as sharp. And they allowed 4 sacks to the Redskins, and the Bears put much better pressure on the quarterback than the Redskins do.
Yeah.
So it's concerning. Chicago's pass defense is great, and they're getting back Akeem Hicks this week. So their pass rush is going to be even more amazing.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring close game.
And they've almost ended Aaron's career before.
Yeah, remember week one. Remember week
this
one.
Could be a tough matchup.
Yeah, remember week one, the season opener.
Yeah.
It was 10-3. I think it could be something like that again. I think it could be like 16-13, 20-17. I just don't like Rodgers this week. I don't think
scary.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's get to the running backs. Christian McCaffrey once again number one. No surprise there. He's just amazing. Number 2, Derrick Henry. I can't believe Henry's now number 2, but he's no one can stop him. He's like a freight train.
Right.
I compared him. I compared him to Bowser from the Super Mario Kart games, where I don't know if you're familiar with that, but he'd be the slowest driver to start, but once you got going, he would just ram people out of the way, and he couldn't be stopped. His acceleration was out of control, and that's kind of what Derrick Henry is. He's a
comparison.
Yeah. Number 3, Saquon Barkley. This is a matchup-based, decision. Miami's terrible against the run, and Barkley's actually. I was surprised by this. He's actually projected to be the highest owned player on DraftKings this week. So that kind of scares me a little bit. It makes me worried, and I might move him down a little bit as a result, because I don't want to. With DraftKings, when you play in tournaments with like 200,000 people, you have to be contrarian. And if Barkley's going to be the highest owned player in lineups, I think I would try to avoid that. Conversely, if let's just say, for example, McCaffrey were the highest owned player, I think I would still get to McCaffrey, because I trust him to hit his projections or even exceed it. With Barkley, he's so hit or miss. Him
and Alvin Kamara have been a major disappointment this year.
Yeah, absolutely, they have. Kamara's not even in the top 10. Number 4, Ezekiel Elliott against the Rams. The Rams are worse against the run than the pass, and we saw Chris Carson last week, Sunday night, have some success against the Rams. And unfortunately, the Seahawks were just way down and couldn't run nearly as much as they should have. But there's a chance that the Cowboys could hang around, and then they're at home. So I think Elliott could have a big game. Number 5, Josh Jacobs. He's returned to practice, so I assume he's going to play. Jacksonville they've quit. They've absolutely quit. They know that Doug Marrone's not going to be around next year. They just don't care. They're veterans. Their contracts are in place. They have no incentive to play hard. And Oakland is playing their final game in that city, like forever, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
The Raiders. This is the Raiders' final home game in Oakland. So I think this is going to be a very emotional game for them. And, emotional games mean that the team's going to be ahead. And if the team's ahead, that means Josh Jacobs is going to run the ball a lot against the worst run defense in the NFL. So
if
Jacobs,
he's healthy. Otherwise,
yeah,
DeAndre Washington.
Yeah, seriously. If Josh Jacobs is out, DeAndre Washington, I think you can make a case for him to be in the top 15 of running backs this week.
Yep.
Number 6, Chris Carson, just mentioned him. Carolina's run defense is terrible, and Rashad Penny got injured. So it's the Chris Carson show going forward.
He was killing me that Monday night.
Yeah. That's another one you don't have to figure out anymore. It's going to be Chris Carson. They have no one else. Yeah. All right. Number 7, Dalvin Cook against the Chargers. The Chargers are weaker against the run than the pass. They're a little bit better now. And I mentioned before that you can stack Dalvin Cook against Phillip Rivers in the same lineup. And if that game turns into a shootout, you have a good chance of cashing your lineup and maybe even winning it. Maybe winning the $1 million this week with that lineup. I could certainly see that being the case. Number 8, Leonard Fournette against the Raiders. I love Fournette because, if the Jaguars are ahead, he's going to be running a lot. If the Jaguars are behind, they're just going to throw a ton of passes to him. So it's so hard for him to fail. So Fournette is just a weekly top 10 guy. Number 9, Alvin Kamara actually did sneak into the top 10. Maybe he shouldn't be here, but he's so talented that he could just go off any week now. Remember a few weeks ago against Tampa, he had a monster game out of nowhere. Kamara is capable of that. He has 30-point upside. The problem is that he just hasn't been producing lately. So he's very hit or miss, which I think makes him great in DraftKings because you want those high variance you want those high variance guys because in a tournament with 200,000 people, you have to try to hit your ceiling with the players. And Kamara, I believe he has one of the highest ceilings of any running back on the slate. Unfortunately, he has one of the lower floors of these top guys, but I would try to hit a home run with him. He's definitely someone I'm going to use in lineups this week. And then number 10, Philip Lindsay against the Chiefs. The Chiefs have a terrible run defense, and Drew Lock is actually looking pretty good. So Philip Lindsay has a chance to, I think this is another case where if the Broncos are ahead, Lindsay's going to run. If they're behind, Lindsay's going to catch passes. But I think there's a chance Denver sticks around in this game, which means Lindsay does well. So those are the top 10. I imagine you disagree with Kamara.
It's hard enough to ride with Barkley, but both guys, they just haven't been the same after their injuries. And I think Kamara, we're going to have to wait till next year. The other running back in the backfield's actually had better stats lately, and that's a frightening thought.
He has. That's true. I think in PPR, though, you would want Kamara, talking year-long leagues. But as I said, in tournaments of 200,000 people, I think you want the home run guys. So that's why I'm willing to trust Kamara. That's why I had Barkley. Yeah, that's why I had Barkley so high because he has a high ceiling as well. But now I learned today that he's going to be the highest owned player on the slate, so that I'm going to back off that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the top 10 or anyone missing?
No.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Let's go to wide receivers. So Michael Thomas, once again, number 1. No surprise there. He's amazing. Number 2, DeAndre Hopkins against Tennessee. I talked about how Tennessee secondary was missing 2 out of their top 3 players last week. And, even if that's not the case, I think DeAndre Hopkins should be in the top 3 or top 4 at the very least. Number 3, Chris Godwin. If Mike Evans out, it's the Chris Godwin show, and we no longer have to worry about which receiver is going to go off because we know it's going to be Chris Godwin with Mike Evans out. So at least that's a relief. Number 4, Emmanuel Sanders. This might be a little too high, but against Atlanta.
Why do you pick him over Debo?
Oh, I think he's a better receiver than Debo. He has more experience. We just saw what he did against the Saints. He just had a monster game. And Atlanta's defense is so bad. They're so terrible. They're missing the number 1 cornerback. They're already bad against the pass, and now they're missing the top guy in the secondary. I just think that Emmanuel Sanders could go off. Maybe this is a little too high, but I think he's going to have a monster game. I don't want to miss him on DraftKings. I want him in my lineups. Number 5.
Shanahanigans again, man. You can't trust that guy.
It's true, but like Sanders has been the one constant though, right? Like because they traded for him, and I feel like he's he hasn't had very many bad games. Like I think the one exception is when he got hurt. The two exceptions, he got hurt against Seattle on the Monday night game. He had to leave the game, and then he didn't come back. And then the other game where it was Arizona the following week, where he played. He came back from an injury early, and then he got hurt again, and so he left the game. I think outside of those two games, I think he's been very consistent for San Francisco ever since he came over from Denver. I just think Jimmy Garoppolo loves him, and he's the one veteran receiver they can rely on. So I would play him over Debo for sure. I like Debo as well, but I like Sanders. Again, maybe I have him a little too high, but these other guys are in tough matchups, like Julio Jones against the 49ers. Niners still have Ahkello Witherspoon to cover Julio. I think Julio should get open against him, but Matt Ryan could spread the ball around to Austin Hooper, Devontae Freeman, even Russell Gage. So Julio should probably be number 4. But it's not like a slam dunk matchup or anything. Number 6, Kenny Golladay. It's a great matchup. The problem is it's David Blau, so it's tough to rely on.
Everything's frozen. Just happened.
Mr. Mike.
Frozen.
Oh, Walter is.
Ah, so Walter's frozen.
Yeah, we're okay. His bandwidth went out.
Ah.
Here, just a second.
Does he need to refresh?
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Tyreek Hill, number 7 against Denver. Chris Harris has had some success against Tyreek Hill, so it's not a good matchup. And Patrick Mahomes has that hand injury. So those are two things I'm worried about with Hill. But he's just an amazing talent. I think he has to be in the top 10. Number 8, Devontae Parker. Obviously, he has to be cleared from concussion protocol. But if he's in the lineup, he has a great matchup. He's a great rapport with Ryan Fitzpatrick.
And maybe the most improved player in the NFL this year.
Yeah, again, no Adam Gase means Devontae Parker is great. It's a running theme here. So I don't know what the Jets are doing. I don't know why they're keeping this Gase guy around. But number 9, Cooper Kupp against Dallas. He's still the number 1 receiver, although Robert Woods has been catching a lot of passes lately. So yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with either Kupp or Woods. But Kupp is at least going to avoid Byron Jones's coverage. So you know that for sure. I assume Byron Jones will be on Brandon Cooks. So I don't think you need to worry about Woods either. But we know for a fact that Byron Jones will not be on Cooper Kupp. So I think that's a good matchup. And then number 10, Cortland Sutton. Drew Lock has been on fire. So much better than he was in the preseason. He looked awful in the preseason. Yes. I don't know what he did in the past couple of months, but he's turned his game around, and he looks great. And so I want to have plenty of Sutton. So those are my top 10. You were asking about Devontae Adams. He's 12. It's a tough matchup. I think it's gonna be a low scoring game. You remember like week 1 against the Bears in that opener. It's not like Devontae Adams didn't have a big game or anything.
No, he didn't. He still won against the Bears, definitely. And Aaron, that's Aaron's go-to guy.
It is. Yeah, for sure. And Adams could have a nice game.
If Hicks is back, we're not going to be running on him, so it's going to be thrown to Devontae.
That's true. But Chicago's corners are so good. So, I would still trust.
Rodgers used to be good, too. Used to be.
Yeah, I hear this Rodgers guy is pretty good at football. So, I don't hate Adams. He's in my top 12. So, in a 12-team fantasy league, he's still a number 1 receiver. I just like some of these other guys better. And you can see here. So I have him
Kenny
actually.
Golladay with David Blau. Come on, man.
Marvin Jones is out. He has no one else to throw to. So I love Kenny Golladay.
I think Ndamukong Suh and company at JPP will know that too.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. They're good against the run though. Like Tampa has such a pass funnel defense
Yeah,
because they're the best team against the run in the NFL.
yeah.
So these opposing passing games are so good. Like look at what Marcus Johnson did last week, the Colts receiver. Like he came out
Uh,
of nowhere. And if Marcus Johnson could do that against Tampa, like what's
that's a
Kenny
good point.
Galladay going to do?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
I love Galladay, and he's been very low owned in DraftKings the past 2 weeks. I have a feeling that's going to be the same thing this week. I haven't looked at his ownership, but I imagine it's going to be like a 3%. And so sign me up for Kenny Galladay. Like I said, I played him in 35% of my leagues in my lineups last week.
I don't think they're going to put the fat cornerback on him though.
No, the fat cornerback's actually been playing well. I don't understand what happened to him in that Seattle game. We're talking about Jamel Dean. He was the worst cornerback I've ever seen in my life against the Seahawks in that shootout that they had earlier in the year. He was so bad. Nick, I don't know if you saw that game, but Jamel Dean couldn't cover anyone. If there was a paper bag blowing across the field, he couldn't cover it. Like that's how bad he was. But I don't know what's happening. He's playing well now. So I don't know. Maybe he was sick that day. I don't know. But yeah, he's playing better for sure. So yeah, there's my top 10. Outside of Devontae Adams and Kenny Galladay, anything else stick out?
No. I think you're spot on. I have to give you credit. You're pretty good. I like Debo too. Debo's been very physical, and I think Garoppolo's been relying on him too.
Yeah, I like Debo.
Well, of course, the real guy in that team is the tight end, though. The tight end, George Kittle, is the guy that makes everything work for them, including the run. I don't think he gets enough credit for his run blocking. That guy's just a maniac.
Yeah, he's fantastic. George Kittle is amazing. Yeah, here I have Debo here for 13 projected fantasy points.
Darius Slayton too. There's another guy. You got Darius Slayton down. What number is that? Like 40? You got Darius Slayton underrated every week. What's Darius Slayton got to do to finally get raised up on your list? He's certainly better than Golden Tate.
Yeah, I think Golden Tate's the better player. Golden Tate had a lot of bad luck on Monday night. Like he could have caught a touchdown. He had like 5 passes batted away in his direction. His game could have been so much better. But yeah, I mean Darius.
Oh, AJ Brown. We didn't mention him. The guy had a career day.
Yeah.
Is that going to stop? Not against the Texans.
I don't think so. I think he's going to have a good game. I have him projected for 16 fantasy points, only 2 below Devontae Adams.
When on DraftKings, go with that guy. Why not?
Yeah, I mean,
he was.
Yeah, no, AJ Brown was in the $1 million lineup this past week. So
yeah, absolutely. There you go.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I mean, I like Brown. There's so many good options at receiver this week.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
Indeed. Oh, yeah. You do have him pretty high. Okay.
Yeah, he's so if Adams is 12, he's let's see, 19. So he's a receiver too. I think. I think
Shark is not right, isn't he? Like not practicing, and then Robert Woods. I don't think that's going to happen again. So yeah, I think we can.
I think what's going to happen again. It depends if Byron Jones is going to be on Brandon Cooks. If Byron Jones is on Brandon Cooks, then I think Woods will have a big game. If Byron Jones is on Woods, then Woods won't do very much. So that really depends on the coverage. Chark is not practicing at the moment, but I'm going to assume that he's going to play at right now in case someone has him in their leagues or whatnot. But if Chark doesn't practice again on Thursday, then I will move him down.
Was there ever an explanation as to why Woods was out for a couple of weeks for personal reasons?
No one has ever said anything. You never know. Maybe it's a sick family member or like maybe just a family member was in trouble. I don't know.
You never see that happen and the guy come back and play so well. This is like a mysterious situation.
It really is. I don't want to name specifics. I know a certain quarterback several years ago had a family member have some serious problems, legal problems, I should say.
Oh wow!
And he did not play well at all. So yeah, I don't want to name specifics, but I guess it's hit or miss. You really don't know. Of course, you have. I remember. Of course, I'm sure you recall Brett Favre's game where after his father died.
Oh sure.
Yeah. So these things are all different. I mean, these are human beings we're talking about. It's they're all react differently to these situations. And Robert Woods is reacted
He's
greatly.
gone off since he's been back. Yeah.
He really has. So yeah, I'm not going to avoid him. I'm just gonna go with the flow and just keep playing him.
Okay.
All right, tight ends. We talked about George Kittle. Here he is, number one. He's amazing, and Atlanta just allowed a big game to Ian Thomas. So they couldn't stop Ian Thomas. I don't know how they're going to prevent George Kittle from having a big game. Number two, Zach Ertz. The Redskins tend to leave tight ends wide open. Not a good strategy, but Zach Ertz will take advantage of it. Number three, Evan Ingram.
He's been killing me. Please tell me what's going on with him so I can win a playoff game. I own him in so many teams. I don't know if I can play him or not.
Well, I don't know either. I have him in that one league that I talked about where I have Jared Cook. Evan Ingram is going to be my option if he plays, but we don't know if he's going to play. Hopefully he does.
We're relying on Evan Ingram and Eli. Come on, man. Is this a realistic thing to do?
I never thought I'd be here. I'm so lucky. Some of the other players.
Evan Ingram and Eli. Oh my God.
Yeah, some of them. My team is so stacked elsewhere. I have Michael Thomas and Tyreek Hill at receiver, and I have Chris Carson at running back. Like I have such a great team, but the quarterbacks and tight ends are very sketchy right at the moment. Number four, Travis Kelce against Denver. Yeah, Denver has struggled against tight ends for years, but not this season. A guy no one knows about really is his name's Alexander Johnson. He plays linebacker for them. He's an amazing player. He's so good. I think I do awards for players. One of my awards is most improved defensive player. I think it's gonna be Alexander Johnson. He's just he's so good. He's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. No one knows about him. I doubt he's going to be voted into the Pro Bowl. He definitely should. Denver has improved so much against tight ends because of Alexander Johnson. Kelsey's lower than usual, but he's still a great player. So I still have him here. Number five, Austin Hooper. Calvin Ridley's out, so that means Austin Hooper's target share is going to go up. And we saw Jared Cook score 2 touchdowns against the 49ers in the first quarter, and then he left the game. So Austin Hooper can pick up where Cook left off. Number 6, Darren Waller against Jacksonville. The Jaguars can't cover. Their linebacking core is shot. They had a great linebacking core coming into the year. They had Telvin Smith, but he kind of walked away from football. And they also had Miles Jack, who's now injured. So their linebacking core is so decimated, and their safeties are bad. So they won't be able to cover Darren Waller. Number 7, Jared Cook. Again, we don't know if he's going to play. He suffered a concussion. If he plays, he has a great matchup against this Indianapolis defense that doesn't cover tight ends well because they play a zone. So tight end will always get open against them. So Jared Cook has a great game. It will have a great game if he plays. Number 8, Jack Doyle against the Saints. We just saw George Kittle go off against him. Obviously, Jack Doyle not nearly the caliber that Kittle is. But with Eric Ebron gone and T.Y. Hilton injured and now Paris Campbell injured and Devin Funchess is out, Jacoby Brissett's going to have to throw to someone, and Jack Doyle is one of his reliable options. Number 9, Tyler Higbee's come out of nowhere to have
finally earning his money.
Yeah,
finally.
really. All it took was Gerald Everett to get injured. Now Tyler Higbee's a monster. I think it's worth noting that Tyler Higbee has played against 2 of the worst defenses against tight ends. Arizona and Seattle, they've struggled against tight ends all year. But Dallas has not been good against tight ends either. So it's a good matchup. Just make sure Gerald Everett's out. If Everett plays, I would drop Higbee.
Really?
Yeah, for sure, because they're gonna have to throw to Everett as well. Everett's such a good player too.
Same thing with Ian Thomas.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Ian Thomas, number 11. Let's skip over Goddard for a second. Ian Thomas, he has a great matchup here against Seattle. But Greg Olsen came back to practice Wednesday. So I made these rankings like an hour before I saw that. So we'll see what happens. If Greg Olsen plays, he'll take Ian Thomas' spot. Let's go back to Dallas Goedert, number 10.
Okay. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, Dallas Goedert against the Redskins, who, again, they don't cover tight ends very well, so he should have a good game. You never know who's going to catch the touchdowns. You assume it's probably going to be Ertz, but it could easily be Goddard as well. So that's the top.
I have a heavy investment in a lot of leagues in Hunter Henry. Why do you have him so low?
The Vikings are, I guess Hunter Henry should be higher. I think the Vikings are not that bad against tight ends. And Minnesota's secondary is just so bad that I think Philip Rivers will target Keenan Allen or Mike Williams over Hunter Henry. But I think that's a mistake. I think Henry should be higher. Yeah, I think Henry should be above Jack Doyle. Yeah, he should be at 14 points. Okay.
Actually, above Jared Cook, maybe Darren Waller. Yeah, that's the only thing I see wrong. Hunter Henry's just so talented. Rivers has relied on him so often.
No, that's definitely a mistake. I don't know. Waller versus Henry's interesting. I think that's very close. I think I would go with Waller, but you can convince me that Henry's the better option. All right, those are the rankings. Any other thoughts, Michael?
No, I think you did a great job this week. Made a lot of valid points. Nick, you gave us so much fantastic input. I just don't know how to thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So good luck to everyone in your leagues this week. If you made it to the semifinals, I hope you make it to the finals. For my sake, Eli Manning gets me there, and Michael, good luck in your
let's cross the fingers, baby. We're both riding with Eli and Evan Ingram.
Yeah,
go Hawks.
Should be blessed. And yeah, Seattle should have a bounce back against Carolina, one of the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah, good luck.
That's good.
So they'll get their 11th. They'll get their 11th win of the year for sure. All right, that's it. You can go to walterfootball.com for updated fantasy rankings. I'm going to update them every day leading up to Sunday morning. NFL picks against the spread, 2020 NFL mock draft just updated today. Joe Burrow, obviously number one, but you can see the other 95 picks in the first 3 rounds. So we have that as well. And yeah, good luck in your fantasy leagues. Let us know who you're playing. Let us know who you're taking on DraftKings. If you have any sleepers for us that we didn't discuss. So yeah, good luck, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, guys.